Earth didn't know what hit it, literally. One moment, telescopes were watching routine space traffic near Saturn. The next, a rift opened, not unlike a hole punched through fabric, and out came a vessel that defied classification. No visible propulsion. No broadcast. Just presence. It hovered in low orbit for 11 minutes before transmitting a single message in over 400 languages simultaneously. Not a threat. Not diplomacy. A summons. By the code of galactic accession, Sol 3 shall present its champion. 1. Unassisted. Combat to prove worthiness. Refusal equals probationary assimilation. Earth's leaders argued, debated, panicked. AI advisors parsed historical precedents. The message was real. This wasn't a war declaration, it was an invitation. A demand wrapped in ritual. The Galactic Coalition didn't conquer with fleets. It tested civilizations, gauged them by single combat. Tradition older than Earth's pyramids. Decline, and humanity would be marked as a Class 0 species, protected, but stripped of autonomy, their development curated by ancient alien bureaucracies. Public reaction spiraled. Protests erupted. Petitions surged. News feeds swarmed with speculation. Who would Earth send? Would they send anyone at all? The selection council narrowed it down to 39 candidates, most genetically modified, cybernetically enhanced, or products of elite military breeding programs. Perfect specimens. None were chosen. Instead, they sent Colt Ramirez. Unmodified. No exosuit. No symbiotic AI. Just muscle, bone, and a mind sharpened by war and solitude. The world didn't understand. They demanded explanations. Why send a relic? A throwback? But those closest to the decision knew something the public didn't. Colt had once survived 6 months behind enemy lines on Europa with no support. No food drops. No backup. Only 67 heartbeats recorded on his biosensor during that entire time, all of them lethal. He didn't just endure, he adapted. Outthought enemies faster, stronger, smarter. When asked why he accepted, Colt only said, "Because someone has to." He arrived at the pre-arena station 2 days later, transported in silence aboard a diplomatic escort. He walked unaided through chambers of glass and plasma, under the gaze of 100 species. Tall creatures with limbs like kelp. Beings made of light and geometry. Nothing looked like him. Nothing even pretended to. They watched with condescension. A soft species sending a soft man. A panel of keepers, arbiters of the right, briefed him. No tech allowed. No armor. No outside help. Each combat determined by ancient selection protocols, environment, species class, tactical level randomized. Spectators allowed but silent. Fatalities common. All legally binding. Colt didn't flinch. He didn't nod. Just waited. One of the keepers, an elder Avaxi with a crystalline neck, leaned close and whispered, "You are alone, human. There will be no mercy." Colt replied, "I wouldn't know what to do with it." The arena wasn't a place. It was a construct, a shared protocol across the galaxy. Each battle staged in a unique biome, sometimes a void, sometimes jungle, sometimes raw physics distorted. Every match live-streamed to thousands of worlds. It was spectacle, yes, but it was also law. Earth's entry shocked galactic feeds. Most new species submitted champions bred for this. Not Earth. Not this time. As Colt waited in the holding chamber, the neural translator implanted at the base of his skull activated. 1,000 languages murmured through his ears, filtered into concepts. He caught words. Primitive. Bold. Dead already. He ignored them. Instead, he reviewed the files the keepers provided, profiles of previous matches. Not tactics, those were classified, but biological overviews of his potential opponents. Bipedal crustaceans with redundant organ systems. Amphibians capable of explosive regeneration. One had bones composed of phase-shifting material. No human had ever encountered anything like them. It didn't matter. Colt didn't plan to outmatch them. He planned to outthink them. The lights dimmed. A tone sounded, low and resonant. The first round would begin in one planetary rotation. That was the only warning. Colt stood and faced the transparent chamber wall. Beyond it, a swirling expanse of stars and black oceans moved slowly. Somewhere down there was Earth. Billions of people. Families. People who would never know how close they'd come to being silently absorbed into something unimaginably vast. He didn't believe in fate, but he believed in thresholds. And this was one of them. Back on Earth, news anchors debated strategy. Analysts questioned his odds. Military commentators dissected his record. None of them mattered now. Colt Ramirez wasn't watching. He closed his eyes. Inhaled slowly. Felt the subtle gravity shift of the alien station. Thought of steel rain in the Eridani rebellion. Thought of the red dusk over burned forests on Mars. Thought of the day he buried his father, an engineer who told him once, "You don't have to be stronger. Just be the last one standing." The transmission blinked again. "Prepare. You have been weighed. The arena opens." Colt cracked his knuckles. No prayer. No speech. Just resolve. Colt Ramirez wasn't designed for greatness. He wasn't grown in a vat or enhanced in a lab. He came from dirt, literal dirt, born in a farming town in post-Reconstruction Texas, raised by people who believed in calloused hands and quiet days. His early years weren't shaped by war or loss, but by discipline and silence. His mother taught him patience. His father, consequences. By 16, he had already learned the two most important truths: pain is a teacher, and fear is a compass. He enlisted the day he was eligible. Not because he believed in causes, but because he wanted to know what he was made of. Over the years, he passed through elite units the way ghosts pass through walls, without fanfare, without friction. He fought on Titan's ice fields, defused insurgencies on Io, and once trekked 90 kilometers through sulfur storms carrying a wounded squadmate. Never asked for a medal. Never gave interviews. And when his record was classified and quietly buried, he didn't object. He just disappeared. The world forgot about him. Earth's governments didn't. When the Galactic summons came, and politicians panicked over which hyper-trained specimen to send, a general with one prosthetic hand and a voice like crushed stone said, "Call Colt." That was all. The envoy found him in a half-collapsed monastery deep in the Andes, living alone, no signal, no electronics, surviving on root vegetables and collected rain. He didn't argue. He packed a bag, said goodbye to no one, and walked out of the mountains the same way he walked into every battle, without looking back. The orientation briefings offered neural injections to speed up comprehension. He declined. "Just speak slow," he told the keepers. The medical team wanted to scan him for potential weaknesses. He allowed one scan, then refused further augmentation offers. "If I win, it'll be mine. If I lose, I'll know why." Inside the station's preparation wing, he underwent simulations. Environments simulated gravitational shifts, low-atmosphere skirmishes, plasma environments. Most species trained for years. He had 3 days. It was enough. Not because he mastered the tech, he barely tolerated it, but because he didn't panic. When the terrain collapsed, when the AI hostiles moved faster than sight, when protocols failed, he adapted. Always calm. Always watching. His reflexes weren't faster than a genetically optimized Zerethian sprinter. But his timing was. He didn't move first, he moved last, and he moved right. The aliens noticed. Whispers started. He never spoke to the other competitors. Not out of arrogance. He simply saw no use. They were still playing by expectations. Strength, speed, bloodline. He was studying their stances, their tells, their overconfidence. To them, he was a relic. An ancient soldier, carried by pride and stubbornness. He let them believe it. One alien instructor, a mere tactician whose species prided itself on logic-driven combat, challenged Colt directly. Wanted to spar. Prove a point. The match lasted 6 seconds. Colt sidestepped the first strike, dislocated the creature's shoulder with a sudden torque, and ended it with a flat palm strike to the thorax. No anger. No showmanship. Just precision. When questioned later, he said, "He blinked twice before charging. Gave it away." He never explained further. In downtime, he read ancient philosophy, Earth texts, writings from a time when humans hadn't yet looked beyond the stars. Not because he was nostalgic, but because patterns repeat. Pride. War. Collapse. Recovery. The scale changed. The story didn't. He recorded one message to Earth. Classified. Not broadcasted. No one knew what he said. Some believed it was instructions. Others thought it was goodbye. The file was encrypted with a code based on his mother's birth date and never unlocked. He spent his last night before the arena alone in the chamber's meditation alcove. No virtual simulation. No advisors. Just stillness. He practiced breathing the way old martial artists once did. Inhale 4 counts, hold, release. Slowed the pulse. Cleared the mind. Prepared the body. He wasn't afraid. Not of the combat. Not of death. But he hated the thought of being remembered as the man who proved Earth weak. That was the burden he carried, not survival, but representation. He knew what was coming. Not specifics, but structure. Each opponent was engineered to expose the gaps in a species' nature. Impulsiveness. Fragility. Arrogance. The arena didn't just test fighters, it tested assumptions. He understood that. Most didn't. Colt was not Earth's strongest. Or fastest. He wasn't its genius or its most advanced weapon. But he was its reflection. Raw. Unaugmented. Undeniably human. And that made him dangerous in a way none of them could quantify. The arena activated without warning. No countdown. No theatrics. One moment Colt stood in silence, the next he was surrounded by obsidian cliffs under a purple sky, heat radiating from jagged ground that hissed with every footstep. The environment was hostile, low gravity, toxic vapor in the air, unpredictable tectonic jolts. He didn't need a briefing. The terrain was part of the test. Across the chasm, the first opponent emerged. Insected, 6 limbs, carapace reinforced with layered chitin. 8 eyes locked on Colt. Acid dripped from serrated mandibles. Strength and armor, predictable. But it charged too quickly. Confident in size. Colt moved toward it, then feinted left, forcing the creature to adjust. As its momentum carried it past, he dropped, used leverage from the terrain's incline, and struck the joint beneath its second leg. The creature stumbled. He rolled away, used a loose shard of obsidian like a wedge, and jammed it under a rear limb as the creature tried to pivot. It collapsed sideways, struggled. Colt moved without hesitation, climbed its back, and drove the wedge through a thinner seam behind the skull segment. One motion. One target. Lights above flickered. The round was over. No applause. No announcement. He was transported out as quickly as he had entered. Between matches, he wasn't granted rest. Just a sterile holding zone. No words from the keepers. No hint of what was next. That was part of the arena's rhythm: disorient, isolate, test again. The second opponent didn't wait for him to process the new terrain. Dense fog obscured vision. Thick foliage blocked line of sight beyond 2 meters. Movement came in flickers. Silent, fast, deliberate. The enemy was cloaked, blending perfectly into the environment. No heat signature. No sound. Only the faintest shift in air pressure. Colt stood still. Listened. Then he moved slowly, deliberately brushing leaves with his arm, waiting for the echo of displacement. The enemy struck from above. He dropped instinctively, and the swipe missed by inches. A glint betrayed its outline. Bipedal. Slender. Covered in reflective adaptive skin. Instead of attacking, Colt moved toward the source of flowing water nearby. The stream created ripples. When the figure circled again, Colt waited near a flat pool where water stilled. The surface reflected the approaching shimmer. He launched a handful of mud into the figure's path. It flinched. That was enough. He swept its legs, and as it fell, he caught a branch overhead and drove his heel into the enemy's throat. No blood. Just a hiss. It stopped moving. Colt didn't wait for confirmation. He stepped away and stood still until transport resumed. The third match changed tempo entirely. Open ground, wind screaming through narrow canyons. No cover. No shadows. The opponent was a brute, a 2-meter-tall humanoid with density-shifted musculature, arms thick as stone pillars, reinforced skin that shimmered with energy. It grinned. Too used to winning? Colt didn't match power with power. He ran. The creature chased, laughing, arrogant. Every punch shattered parts of the canyon wall. Colt led it through tight corridors, where the bulkier alien had to slow to navigate. He found a weak column, waited until his pursuer caught up, then baited an overhead strike. The punch connected with stone. The structure cracked. As debris fell, Colt dived forward, rolled, and turned as the rock collapsed on the creature. It wasn't dead, but it was pinned. He approached, found the base of its skull, and struck with a jagged piece of fallen debris until movement stopped. Efficient. Brutal. Clean. Each round escalated in complexity. The fourth presented two opponents, smaller, but coordinated. One attacked high, the other low. Colt broke their rhythm by never committing. He moved like water, dodging with inches to spare, allowing them to collide. The key was patience. Let them overextend. When the faster one stumbled, he used its momentum against the other. A single blow wasn't enough. But confusion was. He disoriented them, then neutralized each systematically, pressure points, strikes to the throat, exploiting balance. The spectators across the galaxy had expected a spectacle. What they got was a surgical display of precision and intent. He didn't show off. He didn't celebrate. He just survived. But something shifted after the fourth victory. The keepers didn't hide their displeasure. He was supposed to lose. Not immediately, but eventually. No species had ever passed this many rounds on first entry. The arena was tradition, not permission. His continued success disrupted the pattern. No adjustments were made, at least not openly. But Colt noticed the change. Opponents arrived faster. Environments grew harsher. Timing between matches shortened. It was subtle sabotage. But he didn't complain. He didn't ask questions. He simply adjusted. He never looked for fairness. Only opportunity. Colt was running on instinct and muscle memory. The last match had left his ribs cracked, his left eye swelling shut. He didn't ask for a medic. They wouldn't have given him one. He tightened a strip of torn cloth around his forearm, slowing the bleed. Pain reminded him he was still moving. Between battles, silence. The walls of his chamber pulsed with faint bioluminescence. No food. No sleep. Time stretched, disjointed. He meditated instead. Not for calm, but control. Breathe in. Count. Exhale. Again. Reset. The body obeys the rhythm. The next trial began without atmosphere. No air, no sound, just the vacuum and a pressure suit no thicker than film. He was fighting in a dome, orbiting a gas giant. Gravity near zero. No footing. His opponent floated, an AI swarm using thousands of micro-drones. It didn't have a body. Just a cloud of slicing metal and algorithms tuned to eliminate inefficiencies. Colt used rotation. Every movement had to counterbalance the last. He kicked off a surface, twisted, reduced his silhouette. The drones calculated his path within milliseconds, adjusting. He didn't try to escape. He aimed toward a utility port, a maintenance hatch outlined faintly in red. As the swarm tightened, he pulled a power cell from his waist, standard emergency unit, and overloaded it manually. The feedback arc sparked a magnetic pulse. Not enough to destroy, but enough to jam the swarm's cohesion for seconds. He didn't waste them. He reached the hatch, pried it open, and redirected the internal coolant release. The expanding gas scattered the drones. He used the force to slam one into another, creating cascading impacts. One by one they failed. He ended it with only the suit's oxygen left. The last sound he heard was his pulse, thick and steady. Back in the chamber, his fingers trembled. He clenched them into fists until the tremor stopped. Every victory brought more fatigue. Not physical alone, mental depletion. Every fight required calculation under pressure no machine could predict. But his limits were real, and he felt them tightening. Between matches, he wasn't entirely alone. An alien assistant, a quiet, avian creature assigned to observe, began to linger longer than required. It never spoke, but once, after Colt collapsed in the corridor, it steadied him with a limb before retreating. He nodded. It nodded back. That was enough. The following round broke the arena's rhythm. Instead of one opponent, they sent in 3 former champions. Not in sequence, together. Different species. Different strengths. No synchronization. Just brute escalation. Colt didn't flinch. He forced them into each other's way. The brute's swings knocked over the sprinter. The sprinter's dodging paths interfered with the third's ranged attacks. He stayed close to the strongest, knowing it would draw attention. Then he used its body as a shield until the others adjusted. When they did, he was already gone, sliding between pillars, bleeding from a cut on his hip, but still thinking. He killed the ranged fighter first, snapped the weapon from its hands, reversed the angle, drove it under the creature's chin. No hesitation. He used its corpse to trip the sprinter mid-charge. The brute finally caught him with a backhanded blow that sent him flying into a stone wall. His shoulder dislocated. He reset it with a groan, then kept moving. The sprinter tried again. Colt grabbed its arm mid-swing, redirected it into the brute's abdomen, and twisted. Bones cracked. The brute roared. He jumped, landed behind it, and struck the base of its neck. A soft spot. Every species had one. You just had to look hard enough. He won. Barely standing, chest heaving, arms shaking. But he won. Afterward, no celebration. No words. Just another silent return to the chamber. But something was different. He sat down, slowly, and allowed his breathing to settle. For a moment, memory surfaced. He saw Earth, not as it was, but how it felt. Ocean spray on the coast. The smell of grilled corn during festivals. His sister's laugh when they raced across cracked pavement as children. None of it useful. All of it necessary. The arena wanted warriors. It was built to measure strength, reflex, brutality. But it couldn't understand memory. Couldn't predict meaning. And that's what Colt carried. A lifetime compressed into intention. Galactic spectators stopped laughing. Streams exploded with speculation. The betting markets collapsed twice. Some worlds started broadcasting his matches with commentary laced not with mockery, but reverence. For the first time, aliens debated whether humanity, chaotic, stubborn, emotionally volatile, might deserve recognition. Inside the arena, nothing changed. The next round waited. But outside, a ripple had started. And Colt, bleeding, breath ragged, already knew one more win, maybe 2, and this wouldn't just be survival. It would be something permanent. Colt's boots touched the arena floor with a thud heavier than before. The gravity was dense, almost punitive. Air thick with static. The chamber was massive, no terrain, no cover, just open ground under dim red light. This wasn't a test. It was judgment. Across from him stood the final opponent. 8 feet tall. Layered muscle covered in obsidian skin that shimmered with adaptive plating. 2 hearts. Dual-brained. Bred exclusively for war by a species that believed mercy was a weakness. No armor, because it didn't need any. It had never lost. In its tongue, it had no name. Just the designation, champion. It stepped forward, eyes like molten gold locked on Colt. No ceremony. No threats. Only silence and inevitability. Colt adjusted his footing. He could feel the bones in his right leg grind with each step. Nothing about this would be fair. The champion lunged. Faster than it should have been. Colt dropped low, avoiding the strike by a breath, but the shockwave knocked him sideways. Before he could rise, a fist slammed into his ribs. He slid backward across the ground, coughing blood. He didn't retreat. He narrowed his stance and waited. The second charge came with calculated fury. Not just power, skill. The champion's strikes were measured, precise, each one meant to disable. Colt blocked where he could, deflected where he had to, but every contact drained him. His limbs burned. Pain blurred vision. Still, he didn't fall. He baited a punch, slipped under it, landed a blow to the champion's side. It barely flinched. But it registered. For the first time, the giant looked surprised. Colt moved again, circling. He wasn't trying to overpower. He was buying time. Letting the champion believe this was a brawl. Every movement fed data. The slight delay in its left step. The way it cocked its head before each major attack. Patterns. He wasn't fighting it. He was reading it. The champion switched tactics, grabbed Colt mid-dodge, lifted him off the ground, and hurled him like debris. He hit the floor hard, shoulder screaming in protest. The air left his lungs. Everything inside told him to stay down. But he got up. One foot, then the other. The champion paused. Confused. There was no logic in defiance that gained nothing. Colt wiped blood from his mouth. Then smiled. He whispered something the translators didn't catch. The champion snarled and charged. This time Colt didn't dodge. He stepped forward, closed the distance, absorbed the impact long enough to loop an arm around the creature's neck. He wasn't stronger. He didn't need to be. He timed it. When the champion lifted him to break the hold, Colt drove his knee into the already damaged side. The pain response caused a twitch, just enough. Colt twisted, shifted his weight, and used his entire body to dislocate the champion's shoulder with torque alone. It roared. Colt used the recoil to slide beneath its stance, and slammed both fists into the back of its knee. The joint bent. The creature dropped to one leg. He had seconds. He ran up its back like a wall, reached the base of the skull, and struck the nerve nexus with the heel of his palm 3 times in rapid succession. A move taught in ancient human close-quarters drills. Outdated. Inefficient. Unless you knew exactly where to hit. The champion collapsed forward. Colt didn't celebrate. He stood, barely upright, chest rising like a malfunctioning engine, blood dripping from his jaw. Silence. Across the galaxy, trillions watched as a broken man stood over the most perfect weapon ever built. The arena system activated. Lights pulsed. The voice of the keepers echoed. Victory recognized. Earth ascends. Colt didn't hear the rest. He dropped to his knees, vision blurring. Every nerve screamed, every breath cut short. But he was alive. The champion stirred, groaned, and turned its head. Its eyes met Colt's. Not hate. Not shame. Recognition. It gave a single nod. Then silence again. The arena shut down. For the first time in recorded galactic history, a species had entered with one, and that one had walked out undefeated. The record would show tactical brilliance, biomechanical resilience, adaptability under extreme duress. But it wouldn't capture what mattered. That when everything logical pointed to failure, one human chose to keep going. Not because he believed he would win, but because quitting was never the option.